If you see a cuneiform tablet for the first time, you're not likely to identify it as writing, and you certainly wouldn't know which way up it went.
Archaeologists have found more than 500,000 clay tablets so far, but for a long time they were treated almost like trash because their language was impossible for humans to understand. If we go back just 10 to 20 years from today, nobody would have imagined that one day humans would build a machine that could unlock secrets hidden for 5,000 years. The language that scientists use to struggle with day and night, AI can now translate very easily in a short time. Texts that were once impossible for us to understand. And what scientists discovered through these translations was dangerous. So dangerous that even today people don't talk much about it. So, what do these 5,000-year-old texts actually mean? Let's find out in this video. This whole story begins in ancient Mesopotamia, where two rivers called the Tigris and the Euphrates flowed, and where human civilization flourished and did something for the first time that would change humanity's future forever. They started writing words, and they named this writing system cuneiform. At that time, there was no ink or pen to write with, so they made clay tablets from wet mud and started making marks on them with sharp wooden sticks. Once the text was written, they dried the tablets in the sun, which made the writing permanent. But if they wanted the writing to last for a very long time, they baked those clay tablets in fire, which made the records survive forever. For humans, this was a huge victory, because now any knowledgeable person could write down their knowledge, along with every kind of information and accounting in text form, so that information could be preserved forever and also taught to others. But seeing this intelligence, scientists started asking a question. Were humans just placed there, like characters placed in a game? Or did some early humans arrive there and slowly build everything themselves? Houses, cities, and entire civilizations. If you believe in science, these questions might sound ridiculous to you. But what the clay tablets revealed was something that even took scientists' sleep away. If you look closely, the Sumerians didn't invent writing to preserve art, poetry, or knowledge. Behind it was a very irritating, everyday problem that big merchants had to deal with. Earlier, merchants had to keep all their accounts in their heads, which meant there were high chances of forgetting things or being cheated. That's why they started writing, to keep records. But they had no idea that this small trick of remembering accounts would one day completely change humanity. In the beginning, writing was used for accounting, but later, this writing system started being used for literature and art as well. And from these small nail-shaped marks, an entire civilization moved forward. In these nail-shaped symbols, people wrote everything: trade agreements, crop records, royal orders, prayers, laws, stories, and almost everything connected to life. Slowly, this writing spread far and wide, and over time it kept improving and changing. Later, the Babylonians, Assyrians, Hittites, and Persians all adapted this cuneiform system to their own languages and needs. And because of this, a very big problem appears in front of us today. When this writing system was spreading far and wide, people started changing it in their own ways. Because of this, we don't see one single hidden pattern in the language anymore. Every clay tablet can mean something different because dozens of cultures adopted this writing system. This means that the cuneiform tablets that survive today contain mixed languages, and that's why they are never easy to understand. That's why it is extremely difficult for humans to understand this language. But AI is able to find these hidden patterns very well and can translate this language in a much better way. And if somehow we manage to correctly translate all these clay tablets, then we will find out all those secrets that have been hidden for years. Like where humans actually came from. Did aliens really rule Egypt? Was Adam really the first human? What is the real truth about Atlantis? That's why scientists want to push this work forward very aggressively. But until now, it seemed almost impossible to them, and they felt that we would have to wait for centuries. Because in reality, this is not just one language. On the nearly 500,000 tablets found so far, there are around 200 other dead languages written, about which we know nothing. If we look at it so far, only a very small part of these tablets has been translated. And even in that small part, there are such mind-blowing things that it's hard to believe them. Because from that small portion alone, we got the Sumerian king list. This doesn't just give us incredible information about the kings of ancient Sumer and their stories, but some people believe this is proof that Earth's first rulers were not humans, but gods, or maybe aliens. Besides this, we also got stories of the Anunnaki gods, who are said to have mixed their DNA with primitive Homo sapiens and created new beings on Earth. Just imagine, when the remaining 99% of the text gets translated, what all will come out. There's no doubt that this will change history forever. And to translate this remaining 99% of the text, an Israeli research team took a big and unexpected step by using artificial intelligence. They created an AI-powered translation system that can directly translate ancient Akkadian cuneiform into English. Just think how amazing that is. This has made it possible to understand thousands and thousands of already scanned tablets much faster. The team proved that high-quality machine translation of cuneiform writing is actually possible. Until now, translating cuneiform has been a long and multi-step difficult process. First, experts convert those nail-shaped signs into Latin letters so that the original word order and structure can be preserved. Only after the word order is fixed does the real work of finding the meaning begin, meaning translating that Latin converted text into readable English. Even then, when this work is done very carefully, there is still room for confusion and debate. Many times, as soon as a translation is done, some scholar stands up and questions it. The research team had already shown some progress in 2020 when they used AI to convert Akkadian cuneiform into Latin letters with about 97% accuracy. But that was only in Latin, not in English. Translating into English is a completely different and much harder task because the structure, word order, and grammar of English are very different from Akkadian. Latin is closer to Akkadian, so the work was a bit easier there. To do this work, the system uses neural machine translation, the same method used today by tools like Google Translate. This system does not translate word by word. If it did, the result would just be useless and confusing text. Instead, it learns patterns, relationships, and probabilities from large amounts of text. That's why Google Translate gives you language that sounds human, not like a machine. And that's exactly what this team wants to do with Akkadian cuneiform. Even though this AI program is not 100% perfect yet, this software is still proving to be a huge turning point. Now, scholars can quickly scan through massive amounts of cuneiform text and see which texts are worth deep human study. They can now scan hundreds of tablets, look at rough translations, decide which ones are more important, and then focus their attention on those. This saves a lot of time. Scientists will now focus on those tablets that give us a glimpse into the lives of the Sumerian people. And deep inside these records, there are truths hidden that could change the way all of humanity thinks. So far, what we have learned tells us how humans were slowly evolving over millions of years. First tools were made, fire was used, and much later, cities were built. In other words, the story looks like a slow development, not like a sudden start from one man story. And because of this, many people have completely rejected the Bible and called it just a myth. Because in the texts written on these tablets, we don't see any mention of the Bible or any related events. However, we have only decoded about 1% of the clay tablets so far. 99% are still left, and we don't know what kind of shock that information will give to humanity. In the tablets we have right now, the information about where humans came from matches exactly what science says. People at that time also wrote that about 5,000 years ago, the Sumerians built the first cities in Mesopotamia, and 300,000 to 500,000 years before that, humans started making tools using fire and eventually settling into cities. The Sumerians developed year-round farming, a complex government, law systems, mathematics, astronomy, writing, metalwork, music, and many other useful technologies. Most scientists believe that the roots of science also go back to the Sumerians. And if that's true, then shouldn't the Sumerians have more information about our origins than a book that was written long after their civilization ended? But on some tablets, the Sumerians wrote something that has confused scientists. Because on one hand, they talk about scientific things, and on the other hand, they say that their knowledge did not come from ordinary humans, but from immortal, human-like beings who taught them farming, law, and civilization. All these things were written on cuneiform tablets that are more than 1,000 years older than the Bible. In these tablets, many stories are similar to Genesis, like the story of a great flood, a hero in a boat who saves humanity, the story that once everyone spoke one language, and the story of a man and a woman living in a special garden. All of this was written before the Bible. Not only Christians, but even in Greek and Roman myths, we see the same themes of immortal beings and humans interacting. Ideas like giants, Nephilim, and Anunnaki appear again and again all over the world, as if different cultures were adopting Sumerian stories in their own ways. So the question is there one true story, or are these all just human experiences in different forms? If humans were really created by gods or aliens, then there must have been a first man, but not by magic, rather by some kind of creation process. In Sumerian stories, a character like the first man is Adamu, which sounds very similar to Adam. The Sumerians also had their own story of the beginning of the world, which is older than the Bible. According to them, the Anunnaki god Enki created Adamu to work with clay, and later humans started working for the gods. According to the Assyrian king list, Adamu was a king of Assyria in the early period, around the 25th century BCE. This is considered the oldest use of the name Adam in history, meaning this name existed before the Bible. This suggests that Adam might not have been the first human, but one of the early kings, and over time, the story kept changing. Today, many people reject Genesis because its early stories are forced to be read like science. But we have science, history, genetics, and DNA, and it's not necessary that to believe one, you must completely reject the other. If the Bible is not taken so literally, then maybe these things can fit together better. What scientists say today matches Genesis in many places. By 10,000 BCE, humans had spread all over the earth and dominated other species. This is proven by science, and it also matches what Genesis 1 says. Then around 9,000 BCE, people started growing seed-based plants, which matches the difference Genesis describes about what humans and animals eat. Around 6,200 BCE, there was a major climate change and fertile areas turned into dry lands. Israel turned from a green area into a desert, which matches Genesis 2's description of a world without rain and farming. After that, the story of Adam appears. This means, if we look at it together with science, Adam was not the first human. Humans were already spread across the world before him. The real question is, who were the people before Adam and what happened to them? If we accept this, then many old confusions get solved, like why Cain was afraid of meeting other people in the wilderness when there should have been no one else besides him and Abel. He was actually meeting people who already existed. Then God giving Cain a mark for protection also makes more sense, and the story becomes clearer. The meaning of this also changes. Before, this was seen as a story about fallen angels and human women. But what if the world was just becoming a place of different races? The age issue also starts to make sense. During Adam's time, people lived almost 1,000 years, but after Noah, lifespans dropped to less than 100 years. Is this difference because we are talking about different species? Maybe Adam was an alien, a god, or a giant, or maybe the first genetically created human, or maybe truly our first ancestor. But what seems clear is that he was not the first being on this earth. Maybe he was the first king, or the first special human. But before him, his creators already existed. Now let's leave the channel type talk aside. The real issue is this. Humans were not the first beings to use tools. We often keep telling ourselves that we invented everything. Fire, the wheel, tools, everything. The common story is that as soon as our ancestors stood upright, they immediately built civilization. But this story is wrong. Humans probably created more diseases and mistakes than inventions. Yes, we made the internet and the atom bomb, but the first tools used on Earth were not made by humans. These tools were made by intelligent beings who were not even our direct ancestors. Not Neanderthals, not Denisovans, not even directly from our own line. So who made the first tools? Another group did. Some ancient upright walking hominins who were already making sharp stone tools about 3 million years ago. Then the question is, if they made tools, where are they today? And how did Homo sapiens surpass them? The truth is that those ancient species paid the price of being better first and were later forgotten. In Kenya's Homer Peninsula, archaeologists found 3-million-year-old stone tools, which are older than any confirmed tools associated with Homo sapiens. These were not fancy designs, just simple, intentionally sharpened stones. They are called the Older One Toolkit, basically the world's first knife set. Anyway, whoever watched this video till here, send a black heart in the comments to mark your attendance.